Hi, my name's Dave Barba, and I'm with Press On Ministries. Our ministry is to assist church planters in the United States and help them plant churches. We discovered in our ministry that when the very first service comes of the new church, we have a bunch of new people come through the door for the first service. And we realized that we had to teach our little core group how to greet those people. If not, they'd be overwhelmed when all these folks walk through the door in the first service. Somebody said that when a visitor comes to your church, he decides whether or not he's coming back in about 10 minutes. Now, I don't know exactly why or how that happens, but it's vitally important that the first impression we give that visitor is one that's biblical, one that's from our heart, one that God can use to open his heart and bring him to the truth. Often a visitor doesn't come back, not because of a doctrinal problem, but because of a personal problem. Folks want relationships. They want to feel like they're accepted. So the visitor may be saying in his heart, am I needed there? Am I accepted? Am I liked? So in the next few minutes, I want to teach you how to approach a stranger, visitor, especially in a local church, how to meet him, how to shake his hand and say hello, how to break the ice and start a conversation that could lead to a more powerful, blessed, spiritual time than just small talk. Now, in order to do that, let me read to you a couple of verses from the Word. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29 says this, "Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying or building, that, in order that it may minister grace unto the hearers." That's an amazing verse. There the Bible says that we're to be careful about what we say, our communication, verbal communication. We need to be sure that the words that come out of our mouth do not break down, but that they build somebody else. It tells us here that there's power in our words. In fact, the last part of the verse says that it may minister grace unto the hearers. That's amazing. That means what I say might be used to help the person I'm talking to get the grace of God. Now, of course, we can't impart grace. God does that. But the words that we say can be used to break down barriers, to cause a person to be open and responsive to the truth so he can understand and enjoy the grace of God. Then, Colossians chapter 4, verse 6 says this, "Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt." There it says the grace of God should empower our speech and it should be seasoned with salt. Now, what's salt? Well, it's interesting. Not far from Colossae, there was Phrygia and a lake there that was a very salty lake. And the Colossians knew about salt. They knew that it had the power to make one thirsty. They knew that it had the power to preserve. So the very text here says that if we will learn how to use our speech for the glory of God, it can be used as salt to challenge someone, to help one be preserved even in the truth, to help somebody be thirsty for that which is right. Small talk. What is it anyway? Well, small talk is casual conversation with a purpose. It's the little things we say when we greet a stranger to help us begin a more important and lengthy conversation. Let's face it, most of us, including me, are pretty shy, aren't we? And sometimes we're afraid to greet somebody. Small talk will help us do that. Small talk, first of all, is biblical. This is a Bible-based study. This is not just psychology. This is not just based on man's study. This is based on the Word of God. We've already looked at a couple of verses. We can impart grace by the words that we say. Number two, small talk can be godly. Now, it's not always godly, is it? I mean, if we are involved in discouraging words, that's not godly. If we're involved in gossip, that's not godly. But small talk, when empowered by the Spirit of God, can be very godly and used of God. Number three, small talk may be grace-giving. Now, not always, but it can help a person understand and respond to the grace of God. Small talk is an icebreaker. Usually when we greet a stranger for the first time, kind of icy in the room, you know. We wonder, what are we going to say? Will I say the wrong thing? Will I be accepted? Will I be rejected? And we're a little afraid. So small talk is kind of like taking a hammer and learning how to smash that ice, break the ice, which will lead us to more valuable, biblical, blessed, grace-giving conversation. Good small talkers are able to make other people feel included, valued, and comfortable. Think about that. Have you ever visited a church for the first time? You walk in that church and you look around and you know you're a stranger and you wonder if people will accept you. You wonder if anybody really cares about you. And it is thrilling when somebody comes up and talks to you and says the right thing, and all of a sudden you feel like you're included. You're part of the group. You feel valued. Well, I learned this in planting churches. In a new church, anybody that comes through the door is valuable. I don't care who he is, what he looks like. We're glad he's there. We're glad you are here to help fill up a new chair in our new church. You can make somebody feel comfortable with the right words. Now, interestingly enough, small talk does not come naturally. Most of us are not good at this. Most of us do not have the temperament whereby we are born with that. Now, of course, some people have a spiritual gift of gab, spiritual gift of hospitality, and they're able to do it. If you happen to be an evangelist, then you kind of like to do this. You enjoy opening conversations because you know why. You want to get to the gospel. Small talk is not a result of a biological mechanism. Wouldn't it be great if we could have a little pill and give it to you, and it would activate some chemical in your body, and this biological mechanism takes over, and all of a sudden you're a great extroverted small talker. It's not going to happen. Small talk also comes as a result of practice. You know what good small talkers do? They attend seminars, they hire coaches, they read books, and they practice. About a year ago, I was in a church in the Midwest, and I made this presentation. I taught this seminar on small talk. A businessman happened to be in the congregation. He came to me afterwards and he said, you know, Brother Dave, you just taught me something in 45 minutes, which our company tries to teach us every year. Now, he worked for some big company. I can't remember. I think he said it was IBM. He said, but we hire these guys called presenters. They're professionals. They come in, and in 2 days, they try to teach us what you just taught me in about 40 minutes. And he went on to say, we pay them $25,000, $30,000. I thought for a minute and said, hey, you need any help? Part-time help? I'll be happy to step in if one of those guys gets laryngitis. But you know, it's interesting that learning to small talk doesn't take 8, 10, 15 hours. You can learn some simple principles that I hope you'll see in the next few minutes. Small talk's kind of like the first domino. Remember when you were a kid? You'd play with dominoes and you'd line them up, and maybe you'd spell out your name. Finally, you'd get them all set up, and then smack, you'd hit the first one, and that would start a chain reaction. That's what small talk is like. It's like that domino that starts a chain reaction. Now, in order to be good small talkers, first thing we need to do is we need to reprogram. There are some things we learned as kids that if we're not careful, they're standing in our way and keep us from being good small talkers. Here's some kid stuff that does not apply to adults. Number one, we learned when we were kids that good things come to those who wait. Now that's fine if you're a kid. And it's true. There is a biblical principle of patience and long-suffering and waiting on the Lord. But by and large, in this age in which we live as believers, good things come to those who ask. James in chapter 4 verse 2 said, you have not because you ask not. So we've got to unlearn that. I've got to be a man who requests things of God. He expects me to ask. And in small talking, if we're going to break the ice, we've got to take the aggression. We've got to step out and take the leadership because we love folks. We've got to ask. Another thing we must relearn is this. Silence is golden. Hey, that's great if you're a kid. I have 3 wonderful little grandkids. They're boys. They're very active. And when they're in our house, I wish I could, every once in a while, flash this on a screen. Hey guys, silence is golden. They're kids though, they're normal boys and they're active. But if you're not a kid anymore and you're an adult, let me tell you something. Silence may be impolite. It might be unloving. It may even be construed as arrogant. Folks may say, boy, that guy didn't speak to me. He just stood in the corner. He's just stuck up. He is arrogant. Silence is golden, great if you're a kid, but not if you're an adult. Another thing we learned when we were kids, wait to be properly introduced. Well, that's fine if you're a kid. But Galatians 6:7 says, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. If you want to sow friends, or reap friends, make friends, you must sow friendship. So don't wait to be properly introduced. Consider yourself as an ambassador of the Lord Jesus, and you're seeking to help that person come to know Him and love God more. You take the first step and say, in order to be a good small talker, I cannot stand in the corner and wait to be properly introduced. In most situations, I must step out, introduce myself. One reason many of us are afraid to small talk and talk to a stranger is that we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of what that guy will say. We do not want to be rejected. We've got to get over that, swallow our pride, and realize that we can help that person to find and enjoy the grace of God if we'll step out and introduce ourselves. Number 4, when we were kids, remember, we learned this. Don't talk to strangers. That's great counsel for a child. But if you're not a kid anymore, folks, do talk to strangers. They may visit your church. They may become your friends. They may be ready to hear the gospel. Proverbs 18:24 says this, a man that hath friends must show himself friendly. All right, let's get down to the nitty-gritty now. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts of small talk. How do we do this? Number 1, you must get up the courage to enter a crowded room. Let's think of the setting, maybe in a local church, and you've had a great service, and afterwards there's a reception, and there in the room there are some visitors for the first time. You enter that room, in a sense, taking spiritual possession of the room, saying, God has called me to be an ambassador of reconciliation. I'm representative of the King of Kings. Now, the second thing you need to do is smile. Put a smile on your face. Now, that may not be super easy for all of us. I understand that. In fact, interestingly enough, some years ago when I was a pastor of a church in the Midwest, it was a Sunday morning, and I was kind of up on the platform getting ready for the service. It was before Sunday school, and a lady at the back of the auditorium looked at me across the auditorium, and she hollered out, "Hey, Pastor Barba, you sure must be happy today." And I thought to myself, woo, does that mean most of the time I don't look happy? And at the same time, I was reading a book. And I read in that book about the power of a Spirit-filled smile on your face. And the man in that book said, you know what you need to do? You need to practice smiling. So, believe it or not, I stood before a mirror every once in a while. I know it was tough, hard, maybe be real tough for some of you. It was hard for me. And I smiled and I practiced. And I'd even go out in the marketplace and smile at people. Try it sometime. Practice smiling. Go to the mall. Just promise yourself that you're going to smile at 10 people, the next 30 minutes. Go for a walk and smile. You'd be amazed how people respond. Now, of course, I know in some cities you may get mugged if you smile. I wonder what you're doing. Folks, there are times when I have gotten free cups of coffee, and I think it's a result of smiling. Now, you don't want to smile with a wrong motive to get something out of somebody, but I can think of times I'll walk up to a person in the coffee shop with a big smile. Hey, how you doing? How's your day going? And they're amazed that somebody out in the marketplace actually smiled at them. And they'll say, hey, that coffee's on us. Hope you enjoy it. So, number 2, after you enter the crowded room, then make sure you are smiling. Proverbs 17:22 says, a merry heart does good like a medicine. There's power in the smile. Proverbs 15:15 says, a merry heart has a continual feast. Now, I don't know about you, but as a Christian, in my church, we do a lot of eating. That's kind of something we do. We like to feast, potluck supper, reception after the wedding, fellowship time. Everybody brings some goodies. You want to have a continual feast? Then ask God to help you to become a smiler. Not phony, from the heart, but smiling so that you can share God's goodness even with the look on your face. Hey, how do you think Jesus called the little children unto himself? Do you think he did it with a scowl on his face? You know, come here, little kid. I doubt it. I think he had a big smile, and they saw God's love in his facial expression. So, enter the crowded room, smile. Do you realize your smile can be your secret weapon? Hey, there's a picture of 3 good smilers. Those are my 3 children. They're grown up now, but they have beautiful smiles, don't they? I know they're beautiful. I'm the dad. I paid for those smiles. I can think about the braces and the whitening and the caps. And I've told them, you guys have beautiful smiles. Walk with God. Ask God to give you grace to use that smile to soften the heart of a stranger and then help them find the grace of God. Here's a shot of my daughter-in-law. She's lovely, isn't she? That smile tells a story. If you look closely, you'll see there's a tag on that sweater she's holding up. Christmas morning, she gets a sweater that she likes, maybe actually fits, and the smile shows the light that's in her heart. Oh, there's power in a sincere, spirit-filled smile. And of course, I couldn't leave out one of my grandkids. Look at that smile. I mean, the power of a baby's smile. So what do? Small talk. First of all, you enter a crowded room. Number 2, you smile, asking God to help you. Rejoice that you are on a mission. Number 3, find an approachable person in the room. Ask God to lead you to somebody that's ready for you to minister grace unto them, even with your words. You find that approachable person. Number 4, you make eye contact. Look that person in his or her eyes. Walk over with that smile on your face, approach that person, and number 5, offer your name and ask his. Of course, you're probably going to extend your hand to shake his hand, shake her hand. Then offer your name. Tell them who you are and say, what's your name? Hi, my name's Dave Barba. What's yours? Speak clearly, slowly. Let them have the whole name. Dave Barba, what's your name? Then number 6, use icebreakers. Icebreakers. Now, what are icebreakers? Icebreakers are some simple questions which you can ask to start the conversation. These are icebreakers that I have used for years in the ministry. And I find out that usually I can just use a few of them and the conversation is going. All right, here's one. Where are you folks from? That's usually the first thing I'll ask. Where are you from? You want to find out what city they're from, maybe the area of the city. Here's another great icebreaker. What do you do for a living? Oh, I love to ask, especially men around this country, what they do for a living. It opens the conversation. I learned some things that are helpful. The other day, I asked a man what he did for a living. We were having dinner in a fellowship group situation. He was a stranger to me, and he said he was an accountant. And I learned the difference between bookkeeping and accounting. Now, I'm not a numbers guy, so that was an interesting thing to learn. What do you do for a living? That can break the ice. Here's another icebreaker. Tell me about your family. Now, there's a great difference in saying introduce your family to me and saying tell me about your family. Because when you ask somebody to tell them about their family, now they may not just say, this is my son Bill, but Bill is this age and Bill likes to do this, or my daughter Susie, she lives in that part of the world, and you've given this person an opportunity to relax, begin to talk. Everybody likes to talk about himself. And if you'll let that person do that with these simple ice-breaking questions, the door can be open. God can use that to help you both relax, break the ice, and begin to talk. Here's another icebreaker. How did you hear about our church? How did you hear about our church? Did you get a postcard in the mail? Did somebody call you on the phone? Did a friend tell you? You'll learn some information that'll help you, but most important of all, you'll give that person a time, opportunity to relax and to converse, to begin to communicate. Here's a good icebreaker. Oh, that's an interesting name. Where did that name come from? That name, Hussein or Bin Laden, whatever. What's the origin of that name? that kind of opens the door for further conversation. And then here's one more icebreaker. I rarely get to this one. I mean, usually the conversation is going full speed ahead, but if I'm talking to somebody maybe at length and really getting to know them, I might ask them this: are there some other things that you enjoy doing? There's some other things you enjoy doing. I mean, you told me where you work, told me about your family, something about your background. Do you have any hobbies? Many times that'll open the door, and sometimes that'll build a bridge. You find out his hobby is just like yours, and he begins to listen to you, and your heart is open to his. There's a bridge that is built, and you know what? When your pastor even stands in the pulpit to preach, it could be you've opened the door, that man's heart, to the whole church and to the pastor, because you as one person have entered into Spirit-filled small talk. The ice is broken, and now that person is ready for more important conversation. Names are very important. Let's talk about names for a few minutes. I mean, think about names in the Bible. In our Western culture, names really are just labels to identify one person from another. But in Scripture, the names of God are like miniature portraits and promises. And they show us the personality, the nature of God. Interesting, God revealed His name to His people rather than allowing His people to name Him. God often changed the name of His people. Remember, He changed Abram's name to Abraham, Sarah's name to Sarah, Jacob's name to Israel. Think about the names of God, even in the Old Testament. 3 primary names. In the beginning, God, Genesis 1:1, Elohim. That's the plural form of El, meaning strong one. So the name there, capital G, little o, little d, in Genesis chapter 1:1 is more than just identifying a person. It's giving me something about his character. Adonai, that's a plural of majesty, master or owner. Jehovah or Yahweh, that was the most important and personal name to the children of Israel. That was a name that caused them to learn much about God. And many times, Jehovah would be combined with another word in Hebrew. We have a compound, like, Jehovah Nissi, the Lord our banner. Jehovah Sidkenu, the Lord our righteousness. Jehovah Ra'ah, the Lord my shepherd. Jehovah Shalom, the Lord my peace. Somebody said, and I can't verify this, I didn't count them, but somebody said there are 256 different names for Jesus in the Bible. I mean, Jesus is called the Alpha and Omega. He's called the Lion of Judah, the Anointed One, the Lord of Lords, the Mighty God, the Branch, the Bright and Morning Star, the Prince of Peace, Day Star, the Root of David, Everlasting Father, on and on and on. Names are apparently very, very important. You know that God knows your name. He knows all about you. He knows how many hairs you have on your head, or a lack of hairs that you don't have on your head anymore, those that are falling out. Matthew 10:30 says, but the hairs of your head are all numbered. Matthew 10:30. Names are very important to God. Now, this is very important. Learning a name accurately honors a person. If you take the time and the effort to accurately learn that person's name, you're honoring him. Everybody likes to hear his own name. Here are some ideas to help you in names. You might say to that person, oh, that's an interesting name. Will you spell that for me? Spell it. Many times when folks give their name, they give it so quickly you don't catch it. So if you're really interested, you'll let them know that and say, would you spell that for me? Then you might even write the name down. I know a man in ministry years ago when I was a pastor of a church in the Midwest, and that man was the president of a Bible college. He had an incredible reputation for remembering names. It said he could talk to the parents of a student in his college and see them again a couple of years in another setting and remember that student's name, remember those parents' name. I used to think, boy, that guy has an incredible gift of memory. And then I found out what he actually was involved in. He said, here's what I do. I carry a 3x5 card around with me in my pocket. And I'll go to a person, introduce myself, get to know his name, then I'll walk away and very quietly take out my pen and that 3x5 card, and I'll write down his name on that 3x5 card. I'll look at it, I'll learn it, and I will memorize it. So write it down if you will help you. You're working to honor that person by accurately learning his name. Now, I would suggest that you do not use nicknames. Now, I know we've heard of some folks who are good at nicknames, but I don't think you should use that unless he really shares one. Some folks are pretty sensitive about that, and you might come up with one that would hurt their feelings and then break the communication. You know what? It is okay to go to a person and say, "I'm sorry, forgive me, I forgot your name." It's okay to do that. Maybe you get somebody's name and you walk around, have fellowship, you see them again in 30 minutes. It's all right to say, "Oh, please forgive me, I forgot your name." They're not going to say, "Boy, you big dummy, why didn't you remember it?" In their heart, they're going to say, "That person cares enough to tell me that he forgot. He must care about me." Names are so important. In order to be a good small talker, we must spend some time looking at the flip side of small talking. What is that? Well, I call it the godly art of listening. Listening. Do you know that God always listens to us? Psalm 121 verse 4 says, "God never slumbers and God never sleeps." I don't know about you, but as I get a little bit older, there are times I wake up in the middle of the night and I call out to God, maybe in prayer. I know God is there. I know He's promised He's not asleep. He's not too busy. He loves me. He's listening to me. Good listeners are imitating God. They're imitating His love. Do you know what good listeners do? They gather information. When I begin a conversation with you, and maybe I ask you where you're from, and you tell me, we start talking, if I'm willing to not talk and listen, I'm learning some things about you. I may be learning some things about your spiritual life, your background, something that will help me pray for you, help me minister to you, help me to be a blessing to you and impart grace. Good listeners gather information. The first rule of conversation, somebody said, is to listen. Somebody said this, and I agree. "I never learn a thing while I am talking." Not many folks really listen. Oh, my friends, that is so true. Most of us, including me, we're basically self-centered and selfish, and we like to talk about ourselves. But if we're going to minister, we will be committed to listening so we can gather information and be effective in communicating. I haven't really read any of Dale Carnegie's books, but I've kind of perused them, and I know he said this. He said, "To be interesting, be interested." If you want that stranger to walk away and say, "Boy, that's an interesting guy," I'll tell you how to do it. Be interested in that stranger. Be willing and ready to listen. Be observant. Be observant. When I was a kid, about 8 years old, I discovered that I had a love for photography. I found my dad's camera up in his closet that he brought back from World War II, still in that orange Kodak box, and I got that camera out and racked out the lens. It had old 620 film in it, and I shot off a roll, got it developed at the drugstore, and found out that I had a love for taking pictures. I've been taking pictures all my life. God lets me use that now in the ministry. But as a kid, in order to learn about photography, I went to the library and I got a book. And that book, teaching me how to take pictures, said something I'll never forget. It said this: most people look, few people see. Most people look at things around them in life, but few people take the time to really see what's going on. So, when you greet a stranger and you begin small talk, don't just look, be observant. Look for something that might help you to continue the conversation. Look for maybe something that he's wearing. Maybe it's something that he has to do with his car. Maybe something about his children. Maybe something about his facial expression. Something. Be observant. Don't just look. Hey, here's an example. Look at that. Maybe you greet a lovely lady like that. And as you look at her, you might look at her and say, "You know, I noticed that you've got two heads there. Notice you got an extra head on your shoulder. Boy, do you have to buy double groceries? Do you have twice as many words that you say when you're talking?" You know, I think you get the point. Be observant. Most people look, few people see. There's great value in learning to listen. It is important, according to the Bible, in the house of God. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 1 says this, "Keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God. Be more ready to listen than to give the sacrifice of fools." That's very simple. It simply means when you go to church, don't offer a sacrifice of a fool by falling asleep or not listening to the preaching of the Word of God, but be ready to hear, more ready to hear. And listen, it's important when you go to church. Listening is valuable because listening is an act of selfless love. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 5 says, "Love seeketh not her own." Biblical love, sacrificial, agapao love, says, I'm not going to be self-centered. I want to be other-centered. And I'm going to let you know I care about you by learning to stop talking when I need to. By listening to you. By not spending the conversation trying to one-up you from the stories you tell me. I'm going to listen and be a good listener. And I'm going to prove that I'm dead to self and I love you. Listening is valued because it reveals clues for helping. 1 Corinthians 13:4 says, "Love is kind." Kind love is love that's active. And if you really love somebody and you listen to them, you find clues about how to help them and how to be a blessing. And number 4, listening is valuable because it's an exercise in the Spirit-filled life. Ephesians 5:18, "Be not drunk with wine wherein is excess, but be ye filled with the Spirit." Be not drunk with wine wherein is excess, but be ye filled with the Spirit. That's present, active, imperative. Constantly saying, Lord, fill me with your Spirit. Help me as a Spirit-filled believer to be dead to self. And you know as well as I do, there are sometimes we start a conversation and that person's pattern of conversation is so difficult that we have to stand there and pray. Say, Lord, fill me with your Spirit. Help me to love this person. His even mannerisms in speaking make him somewhat unlovely. Help me to be filled with your Spirit, not just run off and turn away and be rude, but help me by your grace to listen. There may come a time when you have a conversation with somebody and you need to get out of it. Now, what do you mean? Well, you might need to make a graceful exit. Why? Because that person may have the dreaded epidemic disease that I call TMD. You have any clue what that means? Somebody gave me an idea, said, I believe it stands for too much data. Well, that was a pretty good guess. In my opinion, it stands for this: too many details. Isn't it true that some folks have difficulty in carrying on a conversation because they want to give you too many details? Maybe I'm doing that right now in this seminar, who knows? Let me illustrate. You're talking to Bill, and you say, hey, Bill, I heard you had a good lunch with Joe yesterday. How did it go? And Bill says, oh, yeah, yesterday. What was yesterday? Oh, yeah, that was Monday, because I remember several years ago. Okay, I had a good lunch with Bill, and here's what we did. We went down to the restaurant down there at the corner of Main and Maple, that building that used to be the Chamber of Commerce. It was across from that barn that back some years ago burned down, in that field there that, somebody told me in that field they found some of the bullets from the Civil War. My uncle, he was in the Civil War. Yeah, and it's amazing what he went through. Boy, there was a time one night when you know what I'm talking about? It's kind of like diagramming a sentence. They just have trouble being succinct. They have trouble just getting to the point and saying what they need to say. Their mind goes off in rabbit trails, and you're listening and you're wondering what they're trying to say, and if you're not careful, you will lose your temper. You may need to get away, though. I mean, you love them, you care about them, but there are more visitors you need to greet. Golden rule of conversation is this: don't juggle, play catch. Now that's for all of us. I'm not talking just about that person who has TMD, but I'm talking about us, me, you. When we converse, juggle. Don't juggle. You throw these bowling pins up in the air, you're juggling. And you're saying, hey, look at me, I'm a good juggler. Whoo, this is beautiful, isn't it? And you just juggle on and on and on and on and on, continue. Look at me, I can do this trick. No, play catch. When you play catch, you stand there, maybe you got a ball glove on one hand and a ball on the other, and you kind of get ready, and you fire it over to the other person. He catches. It's his turn. Then he throws it back to you. You might stand there for a minute and play with it and make a few statements, but you don't hold it too long. You're playing catch, so you throw it back. Two-way conversation. Don't juggle, play, catch. What happens when you find somebody that's juggling in conversation? They're just taking too much time. It's really going nowhere, and you need to escape. Well, what should you do? Here's some ideas. You might say this. Would you excuse me, Bill? I promised myself I would welcome 3 new visitors this morning. Now, folks, don't say that unless it's true. I'm not saying make something up. But if you really promised yourself that might help you to get away, meet somebody else. Or you might say this. Great story, Bill, but please excuse me. I have some responsibilities waiting for me. And again, don't say it unless it's true, but there's a way you might make a graceful exit. And then, here's a powerful one that I learned years ago, and I've used it all these years. In fact, I use it in preaching. How about this? Hey, I know what you mean, Gertrude, but let me ask you a question. If you'll study the minor prophets, they often would do that. It's called a rhetorical question. They'd be preaching along, and they'd look to the children of Israel, the whole group, and they'd say, question. They would ask them something. If the priest does this, does this. If this, does this happen? If you're doing that while you're preaching, you say, hey folks, let me ask you a question. All of a sudden, all eyes look at you, and you're now in control of the conversation again. So you might say, I know what you mean, Bill, that's great, but let me ask you a question. Now that person has to stop juggling, and you can enter the conversation and let God guide it. Well, last of all, what should we do with this information? Well, I hope practically you'll go over what we've studied, and you'll practice, and you'll smile, and you'll work on the icebreakers, and you'll ask God to lead you to somebody that you can talk to and open the door, have a good conversation that God might be glorified. But here are 3 simple, practical tips as we close. Here's some action you ought to take. Number 1, all of us, we should ask for daily word grace. Psalm 19:14 says, let the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Every day when we get up, we get into the Word of God. We ask God to give us His blessing and His power. We ought to say, Lord, will you anoint my lips? Will you anoint my mind so I can be a good listener? Will you give me grace in my words today? So ask for daily word grace. Number 2, be slow to speak. James 1:19. Swift to hear, slow to speak. Most of us, probably including me, we just talk too much. When we greet that stranger and that stranger starts talking, we hear him telling a story and our wheels start turning. I got a better story. I can one up on you. We need to kind of get over that. If we're going to be good small talkers, if we're going to impart grace to the hearer, we need to be slow to speak. We need to learn just to stop. We need to learn the blessing and the power of a pause. Wait and let that person speak. Then last of all, I think we can use this tool to spread the gospel by way of casual conversation. Mark 16:15 says, I'm supposed to get the gospel to who? Every creature. Command. I'm supposed to have a desire in my heart to get the gospel to every person that God opens the door for me to do, whether it be giving them a gospel tract or talking to them about the Lord. You can use these small talk principles to talk to that stranger when you're waiting in line at the supermarket. Talk to that stranger when you're waiting in line at the department store. You strike up a conversation, and you're in tune with the Holy Spirit, and you're talking to that person, not just to impress them about who you are, what you know, or what you can do. You're talking to that person because you know that you have Christ in your heart, and you hope that he has Christ in his. And you like to see him understand the truth. So you begin simple conversation with a purpose. And you say, God, by your grace, I pray that our conversation, if it's 30 seconds or 30 minutes, I pray that it will lead to a time when I can at least say some word that's biblical, spiritual to this person. Maybe I can say, has anybody ever talked to you about your soul? Have you ever thought about where you're going when you're going to die? When you die, you're going to face God someday. Maybe you'll be able to pull out of your back pocket a gospel tract and say, here, let me give you this to read. So I trust that God will help you to use this, not only to break the ice with strangers, greet visitors at church, and begin to get to know folks, but I hope God will use this in your life to help you spread the gospel via casual conversation. Small talk. Don't minimize it. Don't take it for granted. Ask God to help you to learn to enter the room, smile, find the approachable person, approach him with a smile on your face, offer your name and ask his, and then use icebreakers that you might by God's grace minister grace unto the hearer.